All right. We are going to give it just a couple minutes before we get started. For those of you that are here, welcome to the What Did President Trump Mean When He Said We're Giving Back the Power to the People? So it seems to be a relative topic right now. So we're going to kind of go over some brief stuff that we think is important and share with you guys. And that way you can message us in the chat. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. Please invite people to subscribe so that we can have some fun on some of these calls. But like I said, I'm going to give it 1 or 2 minutes here. I see a couple people in, a couple people out, so I'm going to give it just a sec. We got Jason on.
Hi, Jason. Welcome.
Got a couple others. Okay, well, Karen and I like to be prompt and limit our time so that everybody gets an hour out of us and they can enjoy the rest of their evenings and not have to try and stay awake while listening to us. So we are going to go over some things we think are important. We kind of take a twist on the norm, if you will. Karen and I like to have a lot of conversation about this stuff, and we feel it's important to share with everybody because a lot of what's out there just it looks a lot different than what we're experiencing, and the reason we're trying to share with you guys is we see a lot of people getting misinformation, a lot of people getting stuck, a lot of people being told a lot of things to do, and we've kind of all been at this long enough now that it's just more frustration than it is like joy of learning. So we want to get back to the joy of learning and understanding and realizing that no one person is going to give us all these answers, but the whole point of it all is to learn together, learn in community, and be able to walk through some of this stuff. So Karen and I are going to review kind of some language. It's really when I started working with Karen a couple years ago, I love her trial by fire mentality. It was very much, do you know what this means? Or what does that mean? And she quizzed, and I had no clue. I had no clue what she was talking about, but she wanted to know what I did or didn't know. So that's kind of our style, here at Empowered Learning, is to kind of get you guys to get stuck on questions, because that's where we learn, right? Is when we don't know and we walk it through and we talk through. So that's kind of how we'd like to start. And little brief background on Empowered Learning. We're fairly new to this space. What we don't want to do is be an advertising in your face. You can't sleep without seeing us on social media because we're trying to just gain everything from you. Our goal is to bring those to the table who want to be here, who want to learn, who want to contribute, and function in community. We want to be collaborative, and we're not here to be gurus. We kind of shy away from that term like big time because we're not the experts, but we've done things and we want to share and we want to help everybody learn because light bulbs are going off, and we've been doing this for a while now. Karen's been doing it twice as long as I have. So Karen and I are both very tenacious people. So we don't like to really learn from others as much as we like to dive into things and learn on our own. So
there's some pitfalls in that.
There's always pitfalls in that. But you know what? I don't think we slow down enough to actually hit it full speed. So, we just kind of skim over it. So it's all good.
That's very true. I had a friend once tell me that I was started this journey with, and he said, Karen, it's our job to go down the coal chute, and therefore we get to open the door for others. And you and I have really taken that to another fold, right? Like we've continued to go down the chimney chute, and now we're just opening the door, right? Because not everybody should have a painful experience. And if we can avoid some of the pitfalls we've encountered by helping others, like that's what we're here for. That's what we're supposed to be doing, lightening the load of others, right? Yeah. And I like that we've been able to carry that forward. So now let's go into what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, so our topic tonight really focuses on the power of attorney. So our last couple podcasts, we did 3 of them in a row that had to do with trust. And our goal as we move through, and we have our trust course coming out this Friday, which is an intro to trust. So Karen and I are very mindful of not just going, hey, here's a trust, create it, go have fun. It's we really want you to understand it. We want you to understand the difference in the, for lack of a better term, mainstream language that you're hearing, opposed to what does that look like in the more private capacity. And we want to be careful with the public private because there's private language that we've got to learn how to function in the public. And that's where it can get a little bit tricky. And knowing what is what as you're getting into this is really going to allow you to not struggle to create a trust. Get this education, get the ideas down, understand it, and then as you move through and start in your creation, if you take our courses, we'll kind of walk you through what that creation looks like. But the understanding for us is always going to be the foundational pieces. So it might be a little slow to start, have a little patience with it, but I guarantee you the slow start makes up for the frustration you're going to find at the end if you try and just tackle it from the get-go. Karen and I have talked previously before about family members that have created trusts and how they did them and revocable versus irrevocable and public and all this stuff. So that's kind of some of the things that we want to touch on in conversation that says, well, what do we used to and how do we need to start thinking a little bit differently when it comes to getting it right for you guys that are all on this journey of understanding that things are not as they should be. So let's talk about the power of attorney, Karen. Let's, you brought up a good question. We were chatting earlier. What does a power of attorney mean to you, like before this process, right? Like when you were learning things and figuring it out, and you heard this term, what were the first thoughts that you
Oh
thought?
my gosh. So as a kid, I had heard the term power of attorney, and I thought one of two things. One, you're either super freaking rich because you can afford one. And I had no clue what that even meant, but you had to be rich enough that you could afford one, that you kind of had them on staff. And so that was one version I had. The second version I had was that you had to have an attorney because you were so incompetent you couldn't manage your affairs. Okay, so I kind of clumped a power of attorney with like a payee, right? Over somebody who couldn't manage their finances. So aside from that, I had no clue what it meant. Now, I didn't think, in my own arrogance, I did not think that I was a payee because I couldn't manage my own affairs, but let's not talk about that. I really couldn't manage my own affairs. I just didn't think I could. I just thought I could. Okay. Yep. And I certainly would never clump myself into the category of so stinking filthy rich that I could hire my own attorney. That never occurred to me, really. And as I grew in experience and lack of knowledge, right, I found myself frequently having to hire them, which wasn't really the route I wanted to go either. So aside from that, that was all the experience I had for a power of attorney until my dad passed. And then I'm exposed to his power of attorney and who he's giving it to. And he gave it all to my mother, who had succeeded him in death. He died first. Okay. And so that was really my first exposure to it. And I learned some things that there was no way I was ever going to put in a power of attorney if I was ever going to create one. And then there was this clause in there that I thought, oh my gosh, that's absolutely genius. Yeah, I'm putting that in no matter what I do. And so aside from that, there was no one to walk through this journey with me. This has really, truly been a lot of reading, a lot of education, a lot of conversations around what is a power of attorney? What's the difference between a durable one and a general one? And what does a healthcare one mean? And all those three variations, and going, okay, when do I need which one? Or do I even need them all? What does it really look like for me?
Yeah, that was kind of my experience. Was I only knew of two things, medical and financial. And my mom said, I'm giving you the medical power of attorney because you answer your phone and your brother never does. So if I'm dying, I don't want to be waiting to get a hold of him. And then the financial was, well, if you're not the medical, you get to be the financial. And because he was the person who always managed his household affairs, he got to be the financial. Now, that doesn't mean those were the right roles. so, so, as we think through this, the old school way was plug and play, right? Get this document, plug someone in. No one really knew what they were doing with it. They just knew they need to have it because some guy behind a desk said, get a trust, get a will, get a power of attorney. That way somebody can make a decision for you if something goes on. So, that was my exposure to it. I think both my grandfather and my mother both did very well at trying to organize their demise. So they at least talked to us about it ahead of time, had some conversations. But yeah, that was all I knew is if there was a medical decision, it was me. If there was a financial decision, it was my brother. So that was really all the education I got. So we want to kind of dive into kind of the differences of those. You ready to jump into some definitions?
Yeah, I'm going to jump into some definitions. The first thing I want to say is that the power of attorney, no matter what kind you have, is only good while the person is living. Once they die, your power of attorney is null and void. Okay, now there is a difference between durable and general, and I'll get into that in a minute. But the important thing is if you have a power of attorney, it's while the individual that granted the power of attorney is alive. Once they die or pass on or whatever the term is you want to use, then the will takes over. So you really need to have both components. And today we're just going to talk about the power of attorney. So, Tara, do you want to share the definitions for our viewers? And I will cover these as we go.
Yep. And just so you guys know, these same definitions that I'm going to share, plus some additional definitions, are in the description of the YouTube video. So feel free to drop down in there and you can get copies of that.
Okay.
Or even take screenshots. So that's
so the definition. So first of all, we're going to talk about the durable power of attorney. And that's used for estate planning, which if you're on this journey with us, that's the main thing you want to be doing. You want to be planning your estate for perpetuity for either your heirs or your assigns after you're gone. Okay. And the agent has autonomous decision-making authority. So that means that if my all caps entity is granting a durable power of attorney to me, the living, that means I am the agent on behalf of that all caps entity or my sole prop or my LLC or whatever the case may be, my husband. Okay. So I have complete autonomy. Okay. A general power of attorney ends, okay, when Tara, can you zoom in so Jason can see it a little better? Okay. Yes. So then the general power of attorney actually ends when the grantor of the power of attorney actually then becomes incompetent. So let's say my friend Betty gives me a general power of attorney over her, and everything is fine and everything's going along, and then all of a sudden she gets dementia and she's diagnosed with dementia. My general power of attorney ends at that point because she can no longer give me direction to carry out. Okay, so that's huge. And then typically a general power of attorney is used for specific events. Okay. And then the agents perform the duties at the direction of whoever granted it. Whereas durable power of attorney literally is just across the board and doesn't terminate just because the individual can't give direction. Okay. The other thing we want to talk about is a successor agent. Okay. If, let's say, my friend Betty gave me power of attorney for her, in the event that I'm unavailable or I can't perform as power of attorney, a successor agent could be Tara, right? So Betty gave it to me. In the event that I can't, then Tara then steps in my absence. And that's where the second agent, the successor agent, comes into play. They have the same level of authority, Tara would, as I did from Betty in the event that I can't. Okay. The principal, it's important to understand who the principal is. in the scenario with my friend Betty, Betty is the principal. In the capacity of my sole prop is the agent. Okay. I then become the power of attorney. I'm the living. Okay. If it's an LLC, the LLC then is the agent or the principal, and then I them am the power of attorney for that entity. Okay. So now let's talk about briefly the attorney in fact. An attorney in fact, also power of attorney, is an authorized agent who acts on behalf of another. However, I am not necessarily qualified to practice law, which means that as an attorney, in fact, I cannot go into a court of law and practice law in a jurisdiction where I don't belong. I don't have a license per se, and so they would not recognize my authority. Okay. A lawyer, attorney at law, is licensed through their bar membership and is therefore authorized to practice in that scenario. So it's important to know that your power of attorney may be an attorney in fact, or they may be an attorney at law, but they are not necessarily the same. They can't be the same. And so it's important to know, are you talking about a private arena, which is your attorney in fact, or are you talking about a public arena, which is going to be your attorney at law?
Absolutely. So again, you guys can reference that in the description if you need to go back to that. So one of the things that you and I talked about, as we're, when we come up with content for these podcasts, a lot of the reason I don't announce it a month ahead is we're really seeing what's out there. We're seeing what people are struggling with, and a lot of questions that were being asked. And the trust topic came up a lot in the last several months. So that was one of the reasons we wanted to tackle this. But we also started seeing that some of the language, there's a lot of people executing tasks and not going back to the foundational descriptors that get you to understand where you're messing up. So one of the things that we wanted to walk through was kind of like, okay, now that we've gone through some basic definitions, and please do not rely on us as your only definition source. Go and look those definitions up, see them in other contexts with some other things. You're going to see them on documents all the time now that you're aware. If you haven't been, you're going to see these things more often, and they need to make sense from a secondhand position. Mm-hmm. So as we move through, Karen and I would really like to talk through a lot of how does this impact things, so that when you are putting this power of attorney together, not only do you understand the significance, you understand the authority, and you understand that mm-hmm. this document has some serious power and you need to make sure you get it right. So that's why we're spending a lot of time on the understanding and proper structure of it.
Correct.
All right. So I am going to pull up a generic power of attorney that was created through Rocket Lawyer. And while I'm doing that, Karen, I want you to explain the importance of not just sitting down and crafting one of these suckers from the top of your head.
Oh my gosh. So currently what I'm seeing is people saying, I drafted my power of attorney and I submitted it. Okay. Whether they submitted it to a bank or to a Verizon company or AT&T or their utility company, doesn't matter, but they created it. And then what they did is they submitted it to this corporation. It got reviewed by their legal department, and the legal department said, we're not going to accept this. We're not even going to honor it. And therefore they send it back with a refusal to accept, and they close out the account. Okay. So I'm shocked. I'm like, okay, so clearly there was something in that durable power of attorney or general power of attorney that you put in there that was against the Constitution, that was against the Uniform Commercial Codes, that was against the Code of Federal Regulations. There was some component of it that they went, we see this as illegal, fictitious activity, and we don't want any part of it. Okay. So I can say from my experience, having done my durable power of attorney through Rocket Lawyer, there are things, and this, we're going to look at a generic one, but there are things I did in my power of attorney and I modified it a little bit. Every single power of attorney that I have submitted to any corporate entity has been accepted. I have had 0 of them rejected. Okay, so
and tell me who is it important to send them to?
the legal department. Oh my
Or
gosh. And okay, so it's important to send it to the legal department because they're the ones that are going to review it. They're also the ones that are going to determine acceptance of it. They're also the ones that are going to approve it being put on your account. Well, wait a minute, Karen. What account? Every single account I own. My Verizon, my car insurance, my home insurance, my county property taxes, my investment accounts, my bank accounts, any account that I have, I need to terminate their assumed power of attorney and declare my current power of attorney.
so
Okay?
let's back up a second, because I think I want everyone else to experience the aha moment I did
Okay.
when we started to learn, well, why is this so important? And who do we send it to and why do we send it to them? And when I learned this, I think this is a big aha moment that made you go, okay, this attaches a lot of other things to it when it talks about authority, right? So anytime you're filling out an application and
Correct.
you sign that application, you don't realize you have just signed power of attorney to them because you didn't tell them anything else and it was assumed and they said, thank you.
Correct. Which
So,
means when they send me a bill for $30 and I write them a check and I send them a check for $30, one, I've just made a donation to them. So when I make a donation to them being the power of attorney, them having the power of attorney, that then becomes a gift that funds the great big mansion on the hill for the CEO because I just gave them a donation. I'm like,
Yep.
what the heck? No, that's not what I meant. I want my own donation and my own great big mansion on the hill, right?
Yep.
So what I have to do is terminate their power of attorney and initiate my power of attorney. So I can't terminate one and leave a blanket hole there. I have to fill it with another officer. Well, my power of attorney is within my office, within my structure of my trust or my LLC or however I've structured that.
And how important is it to make sure they've received and documented your copy that you sent?
It is important that they receive it. Some sort of recognition is important. And I do use the same durable power of attorney for every single account. Now, that being said, there are some accounts that I have that have my all caps. Of course, that's what we're talking about because we're talking about commerce, is first, middle, last. And then some accounts have first name, middle initial, last name. And some accounts have last name, my husband's first name, / my middle name. Okay, so what I've chosen to do in my durable power of attorney is list my all caps name in a few variations, and then I include any variation. I actually use those terms so that whoever receives it, no matter how they've written my name on their account, they know that this durable power of attorney covers that account.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
So after we get through this section of the durable power of attorney, we're going to share some experiences that we've had that has to do with what happens when you don't have the power of attorney, and how much power does the other side really have. So
all
let's
of it.
go ahead and get started here.
Right? Okay. So looking at the durable power of attorney, can you make the screen a little bit bigger for our viewers? Yep. Fabulous. A little bit more. Oh, there we go. Okay. So the all caps name, that really is where I would list out all the variations. First, middle, last, first, initial, last. That's where I would do that, right? And
did when you did your copyright, same thing, right? You're just making sure you're covering all aspects of how your name is written.
Correct. That is 100% correct. Right. And I don't list them all here. I list 2 or 3 of them. I list 3 or 4 here, I think. And then I include the terms and any variation, right? Because they need to know that this is what we're talking about here. Now, this says residing at. For me, I have to always remember that my all caps name doesn't necessarily reside anywhere other than on paper. So I actually list my mailing receptacle, which happens to be a street address of where my P.O. box is. So depending on how you actually want your mail to be received, that might look a little bit different for you. Okay. And then the second paragraph, and I'm not going to read these word for word. We can all read them, but I just like pointing stuff out. The first paragraph actually says attorney in fact, listing it as an agent. And we went over that right in the first paragraph. So attorney in fact, okay, they're not licensed. They're not a bar attorney. They can't practice in a court, right? So we're keeping this in the private. So when I send this to my Verizon for account, for example, they're going to now have to treat this as a private account. They can no longer treat it as a public facing entity because I've just told them in that first sentence what's happening here, or the first paragraph. Okay. So if the agent is unable, do I want to appoint a successor agent? For me, I do. I'm married. I trust my husband. He trusts me. So I actually have appointed not only my husband as my successor over my all caps entity, but I've also appointed an additional person over that in the event something happens to my husband and myself. Okay. The power of attorney shall not be affected by my subsequent incapacity, meaning I've separated this durable power of attorney from a general. A general terminates upon my incapacity, and I've actually called it out here saying, oh no, this will not terminate except upon my death. Okay. My agent will have full power and authority to act on my behalf. Okay, so it's important, like Tara said, that I'm picking the right power of attorney for the duty. I don't pick my daughter Susan because my daughter Susan is learning accounting. If I've got a ton of assets and a ton of accounts, I don't pick her because she's learning accounting. I pick my brother Peter, who maybe I don't really get along with, but he's a wizard when it comes to investments. Okay, so I've got to make sure I'm picking the right character, right competence, right integrity for the duty that I'm putting them into. Okay.
Well, we gotta remember that all of these discussions, right, is how do you treat your personal affairs like a business, right? We're all talking about estates and we're all talking about all of that. So that's the language we learn. So just like in any business, the more effective, more successful businesses don't just plug anyone into a seat. They get the right butt in the right seat because that makes all the world of difference. So when it comes to documents like these, don't feel like you just need to pick someone to fill a spot. If you don't have a specific someone you think can do really well in it, just keep an eye out. Make sure you've got your bases covered. Get the best person for the job that's going to do what you need to, but do some research. Don't just plug and play on how you put people into these things. I mean, there's people I've met along the way that I would have never known 10 years ago that would be part of my personal documentations, but because they know what I know, or we've trusted and had conversations and we're on the same page, because you guys probably know there's a lot of people that don't even know half of this stuff that we've been diving into. So you really want someone that's at least open to learning about it as they're going through and at least wanting to do a good job in this space. And it's not always just the first person you think of.
Correct. And you can change this at any given point. So I have my durable power of attorney, I think Tara does too, set up to be effective upon signing. Okay, that's great. But should I decide that I don't want to do it anymore, I can do another durable power of attorney and somebody else goes into that role and they immediately take over. So this is not something that's a one and done and you can never change it. That is not the case on any of these. Now, I recommend a durable power of attorney and a healthcare durable power of attorney, one for financial, one for healthcare. I do not do a general one. Never. I do not. Okay. You may have an issue or a circumstance where you need one. I don't want a power of attorney that terminates upon my inability to direct somebody. So that's not the power of attorney that I want to initiate or to give. So I don't have one. Okay. So what can the power of attorney do? Well, here it lists the roles that they can do. And what's really interesting is every single one of these has a financial component to it. Every single one does. Can they conduct business? Yes. At any banking financial institution. Great. Add or delete, change beneficiaries? Yes. But is my power of attorney going to add or delete beneficiaries without knowing what my directions are? No. That's why I need to communicate with my power of attorney so that they know I've got a nephew, Thomas, who is never to become a beneficiary because he's off the hooks. In order to become a beneficiary, he's got to meet A, B, and C. Now, when I communicate that with my power of attorney hopefully is going to keep an eye on Thomas and then Adam if the appropriate time comes up, or not if it never does. So we've got to communicate with these people that we're appointing into these roles. Okay. 2, provide for the support and protection of myself, my spouse, and any minor child. Okay. Sell or exchange, invest. Okay, great. Purchase and or maintain insurance. Well, of course I would want that. Take any and all legal steps necessary to collect debts owed to me or my estate or my LLC or my business, right? That's your job to manage these affairs, okay? Binding contracts, exercise stock, maintain and operate a business I may own or my estate may own, right? You can actually have a power of attorney over a sole prop, LLC, your ministry, your PMA. You can have a POA over anything, okay? 10, sell and convey, lease a mortgage. 11, prepare, sign, file documents. Oh, that sounds like recording things at my county recorder's office. Okay. 12, making gifts. I'm going through this fast because we've got limited time and you guys can read. It's going to be available if you do a replay. We'll slow down. You can read it. 13, transferring assets. 14, other provisions. Okay. This power of attorney shall be construed broadly as a general power of attorney. Okay, so this power of attorney shall be construed broadly as a general, but this is called durable, so this has higher priority, higher authority, and doesn't terminate when a general does. Okay, that's why we call it out here. That's why it's important to have that distinction in here. Any power of authority granted to my agents under this document shall be limited to whatever we're doing, okay? My agent shall not be liable, right? They're acting on my behalf. If they make a poor judgment based on what they believe to be in the best interest, well, my agent's not liable for the harm, okay? That my agent shall not be entitled to any compensation during my lifetime. Okay. Now you can change that where your power of attorney can be compensated. It depends on how you write it. Okay. This is just for an example. My agent shall provide an accounting for all funds handled. Yes, they absolutely should. Okay. So then we get to the disability or lack of medical competency, except may be provided. Okay? This is a durable power of attorney. Calls it out right there. That's exactly the title on the first page, and it calls it again right here. Shall continue effective until my death, at which point, of course, a will takes over. Okay, so here's where I like to get into the important stuff. I mean, all of that was important, but this is additionally important. So here's your notary block, right? It's important for your notary to notarize this. Now, scroll up just a little bit, Tara. The all caps name right there. That all caps name should be written in the all caps format. That is your corporate entity giving the living individual the authority to operate as a power of attorney. So that all caps name, that could be your the name on your birth certificate, that could be your sole prop, that could be your LLC, that could be whatever entity is granting the power of attorney. Okay, so then you've got your notary block, your notary address there. Now, here is a second part that is hugely important. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Next page. Keep going. Here we go. Notice to the person executing the power of attorney. This is the acceptance of the power of attorney role. A lot of power of attorneys do not include an acceptance part. Okay. So what happens is if you create a power of attorney and the power of attorney individual never declares acceptance of the office, all you've done is create the office and you have no one sitting in the seat in the office. So then if all you do is create the power of attorney and no acceptance, but you send it to Verizon, let's say, then what happens is Verizon has just been terminated as your power of attorney. You've told them that there's an office of power of attorney for this entity, but you've not appointed anybody to actually sit in the seat of the office. So now your power of attorney is really vacant and you wonder why you can't or might not be able to complete anything because they don't know who's holding the seat. Okay. So this is the actual acceptance of that. Notice to the person executing the power of attorney. So this is just saying you're the agent. Here's your powers. You can change stuff. It must be dated and acknowledged. And you read the power of attorney carefully because these are the laws and rules you're now going to be governed under, okay, in this office. And then here's the notice to the person accepting the appointment as the attorney in fact in the private capacity, right? Because that's what we want. Here's what all those duties are. Here at number 6, it even tells them upon the principal's death, what happens? Okay, it's the revocation of power of attorney. It's like your duty's done. No more additional actions can be required or can be taken. Okay, because the party's dead. And then here's where you actually accept it in your living name. Okay. And then if you have a successor, a second person to fill in after, they also have those 2 pages left that they're actually going to sign and they're actually going to date as well.
So Karen, when you're giving these to the banks and whatnot, are you giving them all these documents?
I'm giving them all the pages. Correct.
Perfect.
All the pages, because what happens is they need to know what the rules of the power of attorney are, right? They need to know that a power of attorney office has been created and it's been notarized and who's actually sitting in the seat. And in the event that I'm not available, right? Like I've given it to my bank, but now I go on vacation to, I don't know, Jamaica, and my husband went with me and something at the bank needs handled, I can now call my successor and say, hey, the bank needs an autograph on this contract. Can you step in and sign that for me in my absence? They then say, sure, they can go into the bank, they can sign it because my husband and I are in Jamaica. Right. So it's if you can have 2 successors on your power of attorney, great. If you can't and you can only have one, great, still have that. If you don't know who that additional party is and it's just you, great, at least you have that at the very least.
Mm-hmm. So if you are watching live and you would like to have a copy of that document, if you have an account set up with us through empoweredlearningusa.com, put your name in the chat and I'll make sure you get a copy of that document.
The generic one?
Yes, correct. If you need a starting point. So, obviously we said the best bet is to edit that information. So just make sure that you guys are editing that. You can always email me at any time at info@empoweredlearningusa.com if you want to request that document as well. So if you guys have any questions too, throw it in the chat. I am an uber multitasker, so I'm actually the person answering the chat while we're talking. So Jason, thank you so much. Jason has requested the document, and if anybody else needs to, are there any questions that you guys have before Karen and I maybe kind of talk a little bit about some of our experience with these things? Give it a second to catch up because I know our feed delays a little bit on that side. Okay, I'll keep an eye on it, Karen, but we'll let's talk about the experience we had with a unnamed bank that we didn't think about power of attorney until after the fact.
Yeah, they're sneaky little buggers, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
Oh, okay. Trump is thinking about removing the IRS. What do you think that will do to the taxpayer? Okay, so let's think about that. Is the taxpayer public or private? Okay, think about that. Okay, I'm going to give you the answer, but let's think about that. Is the taxpayer public or private? Okay, so I think the taxpayer actually belongs in the 10 square miles of the District of Columbia. Okay, nowhere else. Okay, so if the taxpayer belongs only in the 10 square miles of the District of Columbia, or is a foreigner working in America, that's a privilege, so they also are a taxpayer. So wait a minute, if Trump abolishes the IRS, that means no taxes? I'm just asking. And I don't know. Like, I don't think any of us know because he's a 5D chess player. So it's going to be very interesting. However, here's what I do think. I think it's entirely possible that the Treasury may actually absolve some of the IRS agents, and we may actually have a much larger Republic Treasury than we think we need. However, I also think that we will keep some form of the IRS because I think the IRS, Internal Revenue Service, may actually become External Revenue Service and may actually be overseeing the tariffs because we're going to have goods coming in. So I think it's going to be very interesting what's going to happen. And I don't have all the answers. These are just some areas that I've thought about that I find to be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're not a government entity, right? Like they're an offshoot all out on their own. But yeah, some of these middlemen will be necessary for certain things in the public capacity, but not. We're hoping is it's not the public capacity, or I should say, not the de facto capacity, but the public capacity, right? So we've got so much de facto in there muddying the waters of public that extracting them in the spaces they don't belong is probably going to be very beneficial to all of us.
Okay, so what's been the experience back to the no power of attorney on account with that unnamed bank? How has it been from your perspective?
So, with our experience, we did everything we we not be that guy, right? We really tried to be. I'm not just going to go in and tell you the authority I think I have. We're going to go in and ask questions. So, asking some questions that posed raised eyebrows, but nonetheless interesting, right? We had several management and people within the bank that were like, "Oh yeah, no problem, we'll help you." And we even did the, "Are you sure?" So, we were thinking one way, they were thinking another, and we kind of knew that, right? But we were trying to get them to walk us through some steps with some understanding that we didn't have because we weren't bank employees. So, as we walked through that process, They took it upon themselves to go, we don't like what you did. We are therefore closing your account, taking full control of what we need to do. You have no options. Here you go, sayonara. And we're in a stuck spot with them because they gave me my money from our account, but I can't use it. So,
And cash the
so,
check.
so what I got handed was a cashier's check that when I went to cash the cash of the cashier's check, that anyone
At the bank, at their bank,
and
it was
anyone can
drawn on.
cash. And I went to the drawing bank. They told me you can't cash it because the account's closed. And I scratched my head and argued with people for a good 20 minutes. So that brought me to the conclusion of, oh, if I only had not given them the full power to do what they wanted with my account.
Correct. So that was our first bad mistake. Okay. And it wasn't even a mistake, it was a learning curve. We didn't know how powerful the power of attorney was at that moment. We learned, but we did not understand that when we set up the account, we relinquished our power of attorney to them. Now, that is by default. When I say that's by default, that is on purpose. So you go in and you establish the account. Everything that you sign automatically says that you are giving them power of attorney. It states that. Okay. So here's the kicker. We still need that bank account to make interactions. So what we need to succumb to is knowing that that's what they're going to do. So when I go to a bank now and I want to set up an account, I sign their forms. I don't even have an issue signing their forms. I just sign their forms. Okay. And then at the end, after the account is set up, after it's been established, then I give them the power of attorney. And now I have just rewritten all those contracts that I've just signed because now I'm the power of attorney. Now I can make offers to contract to them because I'm the power of attorney. Now I'm operating in the private.
Yep. And you want them to send it to their legal department. That's a good thing.
Correct. So here's what I've now done. I have an account at a bank and I actually called, I went in. I've had several interactions with this bank. All have been really positive and really good. Okay. So I go into this bank. I have this interaction. I meet with the private banker. I get his business card, and I'm finding the term private banker is really loosely used. They are just not a teller. Okay. So that's all a private banker is. They are just not a teller. So they typically have a desk. So I went over, I got this guy's business card. I thanked him for his time for that day, and I left. Well, I came home and I didn't really want to just go in and drop off a power of attorney. So what I did was I created an email and I attached a PDF of my power of attorney. I then also included my own email address in the to line. When I did that, that was going to be my receipt proving that I had mailed it to him. Okay. So he gets it. I don't hear anything from him for about 2-3 days. Okay. And then all of a sudden he calls me on the phone and he says, well, I received your power of attorney and I just want you to know that I forwarded it to the legal department and they have accepted it. I thought, oh, okay, that's interesting. They accepted my power of attorney. Okay, that means the bank acknowledges that they have to step down and that I've terminated any prior power of attorneys that I've had. Okay. Then he said to me, what I need is a certified copy of it. And I went, okay, certified copy. I said, wait a minute. I think what you're asking me for is to see the original wet ink autograph power of attorney that you can make a copy of. I said, can you verify that for me? Or do you really need a certified copy of it? And he came back and he said, you're right. I just need to see the original wet ink autograph. I'll make a copy of it and I'll stick it in your file here at the branch. Great. That's now been done. So I have actually submitted. It's been accepted. And now the bank knows that I am the power of attorney for that account. And any subsequent other accounts that I create, they now know they will be getting the power of attorney. So when I was dealing with this bank, I also said, I would like to set up a business account with you. Before I do, here is my founding documents for my LLC, my W-9 that shows that I'm exempt from withholdings, and the power of attorney. Can you please forward these to your legal department? Okay. So that's where those are sitting. I'll give them probably till Friday, and then I'll stop in the branch and follow up and see if I want to now contract with them, see if they understand the terms and conditions of how I want to do business with them. So these powers of attorney are really important. Some of the entities that you, Tara, have sent to, who have you sent some of your powers of attorney to?
I sent it to my mortgage company. I sent it to the tax assessor. I sent it to my car loan. So those are the three biggies I've sent it to. I've sent it to a few others, mostly those because all three of those are a joint account with my husband. So I have his power of attorney and my power of attorney have both been sent to those entities to make sure there's no confusion on who has the authority.
Nice. I've sent them to a utility company. I've sent them to credit card companies. I've sent them to banks. I have sent them to Verizon. So there is no account. I've sent them to insurance companies. There is no account that should not qualify for a power of attorney. Like the Department of Licensing should have it, right? Your county recorder. I don't, for me, I would not record it at my county recorders because it's a private document. Now you've just put a private document in the public, so I wouldn't necessarily do that. Would I send it to my county assessor? Yep. Would I give it to an escrow company if I was going to sell or buy property? You bet I sure would. Would I give it to my broker if they were going to list a house for selling it? I sure would, right? So there is no limit to who you can send it to.
Yeah. Because it's kind of like when you're doing a trust, if you do the trust in the public and you don't do all these documents, what does the trust end up doing in default? It goes to probate. Why? Because they have all the control. So those are the things that we just need to be mindful of is, time out in the beginning, especially in the beginning. And then if you're going back on things, just there's no big deal to send it out and just say, please update your records. I mean, what we send out is a cover letter to that document saying, here's what we want you to do with it. Please correspond, let us know you received it. Now, we also mail it knowing that we have proof that it's been received. So we don't just rely on, their good graces to let us know if they have it.
Correct.
It just, it depends on, your budget, how you want to do those things in mailing, between certified and return receipt and express and all of that stuff. So I just want to mention too that that document, along with several others, we like to put a lot of documents in our courses. Our Right to Travel course has 15 or 16 documents. And they're not documents you guys are going to find everywhere else. Like when you pay this $150 for somebody's Google Drive account, it's not these generic things that someone's had from 10, 15 years ago. It's literally stuff that Karen and I have put together on stuff that we have utilized or even taken what we've done and redacted the information. So these are actually applicable documents that you can use today in the things that are going on, and you don't have to go back and erase 2014 from the corner and things like that. So we just want to, let you guys know that all these things that we're putting together are very purposeful. It takes me a little bit longer time to get them out because we are scrutinizing them and we're making sure that we're not repeating what others are doing. I mean, first of all, that's already out there. We don't need to give you the same thing. And a lot of it is either piecemealed, incorrect, or just doesn't give you the value for what you need. I do have to share, I won't share the link, but I have to share the thing I sent you earlier, Karen, because I just thought it was hysterical. So I came across a guy on Telegram that's actually doing a short video that says, if you have paid a guru and you don't feel that you got the value back for what you paid, send them a 1099 or report him to the IRS. I was cracking up. I'm like, that has become like the mantra lately is.
Yes, it has. People
Oh,
are paying for stuff and they're not getting any value, or and it infuriates me. So there's a couple things about Tara and I. One, we don't teach what we haven't done. And if we've done something and it created a cluster muck for us, we don't share that, y'all. We do not. Like, there are times I have gone down the coal chute and I got stuck halfway and I went, I just need to like scrap my way out of this one. Just help me out. And then pretty soon I get like literally pooped out the bottom. And I'm like,
yeah.
thank God, okay, no cuts, a few bruises, but no cuts. And I am not doing that again. So
Yep.
we use some humor in this. But if we do it and it's been successful, we will show you. If we do it and it's caused a mess for us, we do not. And we do not regurgitate stuff that we hear. If we hear it and we think it's a good idea and we've gone into it and then we discover, I think this is a bad move, we do not finish. We do not teach it. We just don't do that. So humor in the whole thing, like, it's important to us. We have a good time. We study. I think, Tara works and she does this with me. And so she's pulling long weeks, I'm sure. My study has been literally 60 to 80 hours a week. So this isn't some hobby that we're doing. This is how we live. This is the principle of how we conduct our lives. So, yeah, if it was that easy to send a 1099 to some guru who didn't fulfill their obligation, give me the name and the EIN all over it, man.
Yep.
But trying to get that now, like, good luck.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
I just chalk it up to bad mojo. That's on you.
Yeah. Well, you and I have always asked the question, especially you in the beginning, is if you can't answer my questions about the end of what you did, that kind of tells me you haven't completed it. You're still working through it, and we're all guinea pigs together, and I'm paying you to be an equal guinea pig. So that's, that's what we don't want to do. And as we move through these things, just picking out the content that's super imperative to what I'm hearing from you guys, what I'm seeing on the website, what I'm seeing in the chats. We're on X and True Social and all of that stuff, but I'm watching more than I'm participating, because again, I'm one person, but just jumping in and paying attention to what's going on and seeing what everybody's doing. I mean, Karen and I have been really good about one of the staples I think that we can share with you guys is a lot of people find a lot of other people that know new things that they didn't know. Karen and I are kind of the opposite. We tend to find one little nugget from somebody that puts our puzzle piece together. And instead of us being a student of their subject, it instantly turns to, okay, well, what are you guys doing? What can you teach us? Because you're further along than we are. So that seems to be a common place of communication. And so we want to be transparent with everybody and say, our learning have not been put out to you guys, things that we've been doing, the things that have been completed over the years, even the things that have been completed recently, but they must be completed in our minds for it to be worth even passing out and talking about. Now, if you do a consultation, you guys want to go off the deep end and talk about crazy shit you're working on, I mean, we'll do that all day long too. But we're not going to put it, we're not going to put it out there for, for people to learn from us from, but it's great conversations, because you learn a little from us, we learn a little from you, and that's how we get forward. And that's the collaboration that we'd like to see. So just in the last, go ahead.
I didn't want to interrupt you. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, in just the last couple of minutes, I want to mention a couple things, and then you can close it out. Our next podcast is going to be March 5th. I love that today is 2525, in case anybody missed that. And then March 5th, look for emails, look for the live to be scheduled again. Now that I'm kind of back into my flow of things and getting things scheduled properly, you guys will see it long before the day of. Unfortunately, that's how I function today. So I will move through that and get you guys the topics that Karen and I are going to talk about on the next podcast. So go ahead, Karen.
Perfect. And I was just going to say, if there's something specific you want to learn about, or something specific you want us to talk about, or you want to have more of an open dialogue and not just the two of us talking, let us know. Send us emails, give us the communication, give us the feedback. We will definitely take it into consideration, and then we'll see what we can do. If we've completed a task around what you're interested in and we think it's appropriate for us to share at this time, we'll definitely do that. We may even put together a training on that. So without feedback from you guys, we don't really know what it is you're looking for. Right now, we're just really paying attention to what's out there in the social arena, and we're trying to actually bring some education and to light to some of the things that are off the rails, or they're maybe not being presented in a true honest capacity when we've actually done and had some success in a specific arena. Those are the things we're actually sharing about now. So let us know if you've got some stuff you want to learn about.
Yep, absolutely. And feel free to share, subscribe. All the lives are recorded and put on the YouTube channel, so you all have access to all of those. We appreciate all of you spending time with us. Again, we like to give you your life back in an hour. So thank you guys. So Karen and I can go eat dinner now. Thank you guys for being part of it. And we look forward to seeing you on the next one.
Bye, guys.